And I promise you all, as doc students, things will never go according to plan. But I want to tell you one secret that separates people who are ABD from those that finish. And the secret is about how people respond when they're faced with disappointment differentiates those who are in stay ABD from those who finish. And that's why on this particular episode of From ABD to PhD show, we're going to talk about how to overcome disappointment in the dissertation process. This is going to happen to us all, and it's a matter of how we respond. So today's episode is going to be a great episode. Again, this is around the time where folks start to hear, different things about how the dissertation process is going. Deadlines are popping up for graduation. I know things, are a tight crunch right now. And I want to talk about how to respond to disappointment because it will happen. But again, what differentiates those who finish from those who do not is how you respond. And I want to say thank you all so much for tuning in to this episode of From ABD to PhD, where we talk all things getting through the dissertation process. And my name is Dr. Ramon Goings. I'm the host of this show and founder of Done Dissertation, where we demystify the dissertation process so that you, the doctoral student, can write and defend your dissertation in 1 year or less. This episode of From ABD to PhD is sponsored by the Done Dissertation and Velocity Group Coaching Program. It is a 4-month coaching experience to help you to get through, to write, and defend either your dissertation proposal or if you're past your proposal defense, your final dissertation in the next 4 months. So if you're someone who's trying to figure out how to get through the program, you're trying to figure out how do I navigate this disappointment and I need support and you want to make sure that you get through with the least amount of headache, then I definitely suggest that you learn more about our program and apply. You can go to www.velocitydissertation.com to learn more about our program and to apply. But I'm looking forward to talking with you all for this episode. And for those who are watching live, you could drop who you are in the comments, where you're coming from, maybe where you are in the doc process. It'd be so helpful because, again, not only do I want to give you all information, but I want you all to build community with one another, create networks, all those type of things. So thank you all again so much for tuning in. And shout out to one of our Done Dissertation folks, Sarah. Good to see you on. I hope all is going well. But again, if you can, drop who you are in the comments, and then that way we can build community. Let me know what you're doing, where you are in the process, and then we will get started. And for those who you're just tuning in, if you're catching this or you're watching the replay, make sure that you go to our YouTube page at Done Dissertation, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell for notifications so that you will know when we go live with more of these future episodes of the show. But again, you might be wondering why, we're talking about disappointment and what does that got to do with the dissertation? And I know for some of you all right now, you have experienced disappointment in this process. And so if you have already, let me know in the comments what's happened. If you can, what's been part of the, disappointment that you experienced. And a number of things that I see doc students experiencing, just so you all can think about what do people might experience in terms of disappointment if you're not the doc, dissertation process yet. Sometimes committee members leave. Sometimes folks have health issues that might cause disappointment where they didn't finish as fast as they thought to. Sometimes you just say, you know what, I don't have the energy to give to it. So you're just disappointed in your progress. There are so many things that can get in the way of you finishing. And so I really do want to get at this because it's sometimes about not really what happens, but how we respond to what happens with what makes the difference. And thank you to KY Burton for dropping in. And so the first thing when we think about disappointment in the dissertation process, first things first, I want to normalize that it's okay to get frustrated with the disappointments in the journey. Like this process, because it's so long and because the finish line seems so far away at times, it can be like, oh my God, like everything's getting in the way of experiencing that momentum that you need to finish. But what I want you all to take away first is that, it's okay to experience this disappointment. It's okay to be frustrated. And it's okay to take a break. But what we preach at Done Dissertation is not just about taking a break. We rather you take a quick break than take a vacation. And there's certainly a difference because what some students will do is that they get so frustrated. They're like, forget this process. I'm just going to do my own thing. I'll try to figure it out. But I'm so tired and burnt out. I'm going to take a break. And then that break, what they thought was a break, turns into a vacation. And vacations look like, a month, 2 months before you've actually looked at the document because you're just so frustrated. And a lot of times this comes with our own, insecurities about writing or what our committee is going to think about all these other things that can just get in our way from finishing the doctoral journey. And so this is the first part, right? We got to think about and walk away and take a break from the work, but not go on vacation from the work. And you all have experienced this, right? It's emotionally taxing trying to finish this dissertation. It's a lot of work. I see we have Tiffany Evans on. Says she's at just submitted IRB by the end of April, right? You're trying to rush to get to that deadline. And then sometimes in some people's cases, not yours for you, Tiffany, but for other folks, sometimes you don't hit the deadline. And that can be very frustrating. And then what ends up happening because you just get emotionally taxed because you've not only invested your time, but you invested your money. A lot of y'all are putting debt to get these degrees, and you've been dedicated to the work, right? You got into this for a purpose. You wanted to make an impact with your research, and you're trying to figure out and do that, but all of these things continue to get in the way of you getting to the goal of finishing your dissertation. And it's just unfortunate when things just don't go according to how you normally plan them. But what we always recommend is that when you experience these things, first get frustrated, right? It's cool to do that. Then take your break, but your break should be like a day or two. Like, you don't need more than that, because what ends up happening is that you spend so much time away from the dissertation. Then it's not only that you become disappointed with what happened that caused you to take the vacation, but then you get disappointed because of your lack of progress with the document when someone asks you about it. And then all those feelings just push you further and further away from writing a dissertation. We see it sometimes with our clients, but then we also see it just from folks who are considering to work with us. Like, they spend so much time away, they're just trying to figure out how to get out of the rut to kind of get back into it. And what our goal is to help you is to not get in the rut in the first place. And so that's why we say take a break, not a vacation. And a lot of times, I want to give you one example of how this will play out and how I've seen it happen when folks are going through this process and experience disappointment. A lot of times, I would say it comes around feedback. I know it used to happen to me sometimes when I write, a chapter, or write something and I submit it to my chair or whoever for feedback, and then I get ripped up with all these questions, all these comments, all these things I have to do. But for some students, when they get the feedback, it makes you freeze and it paralyzes you. So if that's you and you might have experienced that, it's very common, right? It's not a problem. But these things can't paralyze you forever, because what I will say is that if you don't get used to getting feedback and moving through the feedback and applying it, you won't get out of the dissertation process, because the feedback is going to be so important to you finishing. You have to spend the time, you have to spend the effort, and you have to take the feedback for what it is and then improve. Because best believe, when I was a first year doc student and I got feedback from my professors, I was just like, I don't know what to do with this. And I had a choice. Either I figure it out or I quit. And for me, I'm no quitter. And a lot of you are no quitters, right? You're on here watching, either live or on a replay, because you don't want to quit at this process. You want to figure out how to do it. And so first things first, it takes for you to realize that, when you experience these feedback, loops with your chair and you're getting frustrated, it's okay. But here, I want to give you a strategy on how to respond. First things first is that take a pause, right? Get the feedback, read it for what it is, take a step back. Then what I want you to do, come back to it like a day later, and you'll have a whole fresh perspective on this document, because now you had a chance to take a step back. When you first get the feedback, we're in our feelings, and I do it as well. I get feedback from journals all the time on my research, and sometimes the reviewers are just very critical on the work, and sometimes you got to take a step back, like, I don't even want to deal with this right now. Read it, put it away, come back to it with a fresh perspective. Then what you got to start thinking about, especially any type of disappointment that you're experiencing, what is it that you have control over and what do you not have control over? So in the case of feedback, you have control over you actually taking the feedback and responding to it and doing something with it. If it's something like, part of the process didn't go according to plan, maybe your timelines didn't work out. Sometimes it's things that are beyond your control. You're waiting for a committee member to give you feedback on a chapter. They said 2 weeks, has been 6 weeks. Like, sometimes these things are out of your control. You can do things to kind of speed people up and like reach out and make sure you stay connected. But there are going to be things that are outside of your control and you have nothing to do with that. But what you can do is just control the things you can control. And for many of us, what it looks like is that we just have to get into the momentum of, like, if we're at a particular part of the process where we experience the setback, we have to just plow through it. And sometimes it might be, hey, I worked on chapter 1. I got a lot of critical feedback. I just can't handle it right this second. I'm going to continue working on chapter 2 to continue my momentum until I get chapter 2 done, or I get a section done on chapter 2. And I'm going to come back to the feedback. So sometimes it's about managing the project in different ways. Maybe you go to a different section, that is easier to write. And if you're one who's dealing with feedback in particular, because I know that's what a lot of us are dealing with, we often hear it from our clients. We often say is like, go to we call it the low-hanging fruit of the feedback. Whatever's the easiest for you to reply to and fix, go fix that first, because that's where you get the instant win. And I'm all about instant wins in this process, because it just, everything else seems so difficult at times. So get the easy win and then build on that. And as you make momentum and you keep coming back to it every day, it'll get a lot easier. And so if any of that is resonating with you, please do let me know in the chat. Thank you again we have Tiffany Evans from St. Edward's University is currently submitting IRB by end of April. That is a great time. One of my students' dissertation advisee just got IRB maybe a couple weeks ago, and now they're collecting data. And just hearing them today talk about their data and what they got so far just from their first interview it's just amazing. So when you get to do that work, Tiffany, it'll be great. I know you're looking forward to that. Shout out to Nathan Webb at William Patterson University, submitting IRB very soon. We met at AACT. Yep, I remember you, Nathan. I'm actually coming out to William Patterson for your residency meeting I think in June. So I'm looking forward to connecting with you all there. And yeah, I had someone on Facebook user who talked about, yes, expected health issues slow my dissertation process. However, has made me stronger person spiritually and mentally. Yep. That is so true. We experience these setbacks, but it just gives us a setup for something greater. And it's a matter of just pushing through and getting the support that you need, but really making sure that you are mindful of what the disappointment is and making sure that you have the pieces in place to overcome it. Shout out to, we got Virginia Whitlock, MBA, PhD candidate, project management certification. Perfect. Just received IRB approval today. Congratulations, Virginia. Let us know what your study is about. If you're for someone that if you're maybe doing a survey, just drop your survey link in the comments. You never know, someone who might be watching, making apply to be in your study. I'm not sure what type of study you're doing, but just check it out. If you do, just drop your link in the comments. Congratulations. Tiffany said congratulations. Yeah, it's a big to get the IRB approval. That's just like a step, just a hurdle that's like, whew, I can get that done and I can move on. And so again, for those who are just tuning in, this is From ABD to PhD show. And in today's episode, we're talking about all things how to respond to disappointment in the dissertation process. And I'm Dr. Ramon Goings, the host of this show. And today's episode is sponsored by the Done Dissertation Velocity Group Coaching Program. It is a 4-month coaching experience with the goal to help you, the doctoral student, write and defend either your dissertation proposal, or if you're past proposal defense, your final dissertation over the next 4 months. So if you're someone who's looking to get the fast track and looking to get the support, the structure, and the guidance that you need to get to the finish line, then I want you to go to www.velocitydissertation.com to apply to work with us. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments if you're watching live or on the replay, or shoot me a DM if you have any questions. But I'm looking forward, again, to this particular episode, talking about all things how to respond to disappointment in the dissertation process. So first things first, right? What I talked about, once you take your break, not a vacation, right? The second piece of this process, when you're trying to respond to disappointment and try to figure out what you should do, is that this is the opportunity for you to lean on your support system. So if you know anything, and if any of you have read my book, 14 Secrets to a Done Dissertation, we are in the book, I talk about the idea of having an accountability and reality check partner. Those people become very important when you are trying to navigate disappointment in the process. They keep you grounded in the process. And if you're looking about where to look for this, it's in chapter 5 of the book, because it's important, because as you all know, that the process can get just so overwhelming, but you need a network. I just remember going through my doctoral program, and shout out to Dr. Larry Walker was one of my supports. Like, we were accountability partners in our program, and we would just find times to just like, hey man, these folks tripping about something else that we're doing, or we experienced this particular setback, and you have to lean on your network. And and again, it could be your classmate. Like in my case, for sure, it was my spouse, my wife Renee. Like we were talking. She was always helping me out, trying to figure things out, how to get through this journey, because you don't do it alone, right? If you're trying to do this all by yourself, it is almost an insurmountable feat just to do it all on your own. We all need help. We all need support. It might be your family. It might be friends, it might be a therapist, whatever it is you need in your support system. Make sure that you get that support that you need to finish, because they're going to be there in times when you're experiencing difficulty, and they know who you are. They know how they can best help you. And you have to be willing to open up and say, like, man, I need some support. I'm struggling, or, I need to get through this part of the process. Shout out to Dr. Bianco. I didn't see your comment there. I appreciate you. Good to see you. Dr. Bianco is one of my mentors. She's been helping me out since I was a doc student. It's great when you have great mentors to really help guide you along the way. So shout out to you, Dr. Bianco. Good to see you. And so with that, right, when we're thinking about, leaning on our support system, like in my case, when I was learning how to write for publication, Dr. Bianco, Dr. Ford, and others, like people I lean on for support. Like we all need support structure. And sometimes the support that you might need different people for different types of things you're experiencing. So you might need someone who's in your doc program to kind of help you navigate, like when you're experiencing setbacks with your chair, for instance. You might need that person outside of your university when you're trying to figure out, how do I navigate this university culture while in the dissertation process, and like keep experiencing these roadblocks. Like you need different people for different things. And so it becomes really important. And what I'll give an example for a lot of folks experience, and where you need to lean on your support system, is when, for instance, when your chair leaves the university. We've had this happen for a lot of students, and I was on a podcast last week. Shout out to the Doc Talk podcast. We were on LinkedIn. We were talking about this idea of our doc journey, and the other panelist that I was on with talked about how he had, I think it was like 5 chairs in 6 months, something crazy, where so many chair turnover that he had over and over and over again. And so just imagine how that disappointment, where you're starting to make momentum and that person leaves, now you got to regroup, work with someone else. And it happens to a lot of students. We have clients in our program who it happens to. But you have to rely and so get that support from your program. Like, first things first, it's cool to be disappointed because these things happen. At first I was like heartbroken when one of my committee members, he left the university at the time. I'm like, oh man, what am I going to do? Luckily, I was able to keep him on as an external member. But these are the things sometimes that you need to take a second, get disappointed and then figure out, all right, what's my course of action? If it's someone leaving the university in this case, what's the policy say? I just had this happen with a doc student of mine. Another professor was leaving. We need to figure out, all right, do we need to replace them with someone else, or can we keep them on? And we just need to look at the policy. So it became a quick fix. So it's for you sometimes to figure out what's the fix in order to get the help that you need. So your support might be talking to a faculty member in the department, talking to the department chair, the dean. You might have to figure out where the support structure might come from. Might be from the graduate school, depending on how your university is structured. There are so many ways and so many people that you need to lean on throughout this process. It's hard to do it alone, and I do not recommend it. Because all that will happen is that you will just get burnt out trying to do all the things and trying to figure it all out and trying to understand all the things that you just don't have experience with. And it becomes very difficult. So if this is you, I highly recommend that you don't try to do this thing alone, because it can get really, really taxing on you. And with that second piece, leaning on your support system, that is critical to responding to disappointment in the process. They are there for you. They will support you. And if you have somebody in your support network, if you're on live or on the comments, send them some love, tag them on this post, or just even drop their initials, drop something so that, show those folks some love. Because again, we're going through this process. While it might feel like you're doing it alone, there is a community behind you that's pushing you to do this work too. So show them some love in the comments. And again, for those who are just tuning in, we are talking about all things how to respond to disappointment during the dissertation process on this episode From ABD to PhD. I'm your host, Dr. Ramon Goings, and this show is sponsored by the Done Dissertation Velocity Group Coaching Program. The Done Dissertation Velocity Group Coaching Program is a 4-month coaching experience with the goal to help you, the doctoral student, write and defend your dissertation proposal or final dissertation over the next 4 months. So if you're looking to fast track the process, you're looking to get into a community, you're looking for that support system that you don't have right now, definitely check in with us in the Done Dissertation Velocity Group Coaching Program. You can learn more about our program by visiting www.velocitydissertation.com. And again, thank you all, everybody who's been tuning in so far. And we have a great question I want to bring up from Alexa on YouTube. Alexa says, how do you overcome the disappointment of not hearing back from a potential postdoc mentor or getting an opportunity because you do not have a paper yet? So sometimes if you're not hearing back from them, it's just a matter of how long ago was it that you reached out, or if there was a formal process, then you should definitely follow with whoever is leading the search. But if it was something informal where you needed a postdoc mentor before you could apply for the postdoc, I know I applied for a postdoc like that when I was coming out of my doc program. So if it's one of those types where you need them before you can apply, like, I would reach out to them. And I'll reach out to them a number of ways. It might be through email. If you can't get to them through email, it might be reaching out, via telephone, their office line. If there's someone active on social media, it might be reaching out to them that way. It might be, and this is when your support system comes in, Alexa, it might be you leaning in on your support network. Might be talking to your chair, your dissertation chair, or a committee member. They might be connected to that postdoc mentor that you're trying to reach out to. Sometimes you got to be just resourceful in this process to look at all the angles that you can get in order to get the support that you need. And then, this idea you said, or getting an opportunity because you don't have a paper yet. So I'm all for, and Alexa, tell me what discipline you're in, but I'm all for when the opportunities are not there for you. I'm all about students creating the opportunities. So as I mentioned about the dissertation process, but this applies, I think, for the doc program generally. Sometimes if you want particular experiences, you have to create them for yourself. Sometimes waiting on the doc program to do it, or waiting on your advisor to do it, sometimes they just don't have the time to lead you in that way. A lot of times what I do for a lot of my advisees, I start them off, working with me on a research, But then as soon as like year one ends, I'm trying to get them to go through the process of doing IRB, all these things so they can develop the skill set so they can conduct their own independent study, because I want them to do work themselves, with my guidance, but I want them to get used to like, hey, I'm carrying out a project and I'm going to take it from beginning to end. And so I know like even before the dissertation, it's always beneficial to have had an opportunity. So if one doesn't exist, Alexa, you create it, or you find a network of other scholars who might be doc students and you all create an opportunity for each other. That's the best route I would say to go. And that was something I did myself as a doc student. My professors were publishing, but just the nature of our program and how many students we had, it just wasn't an opportunity for myself to publish with the faculty. So I just started to learn about the process and create and get other opportunities with other scholars outside in a different network. So Alexa, that's what I would think about in terms of that response. But I do see your follow-up. You say, I work in clinical research, so it can be a little difficult to get positions because I am not in basic science research. I work with children who have cognitive heart disease. Perfect. You say you've written an IRB too since you work with children. Yeah, so it might be figuring out how do you use where you're working in a setting to develop a small pilot study that can help you in terms of getting data to write a paper, but then also where it becomes a benefit to where you work, right? So it might be something sitting around an issue that the work is trying to contemplate doing, and you're going to be actually doing that clinical work. And then for you, it might be too getting on a supplement or someone's research project. So I don't know if you get like NIH funding in wherever you are a student, NIH, or even on someone NSF project, might be getting supplemental funds to do a piece of the project for someone. So it's just a matter of figuring out where the opportunity lies in this journey. And so you just got to be a little mindful. Sometimes, again, asking people, telling people your intentions, like saying, hey, I'm very interested in publishing. Like, do you all know who I could work with or who I could reach out to that could help me think through this, or who could help me with the opportunity? And like talk to everybody. Like so there's an opportunity that's probably sitting right in front of you in your network that you might not be even recognizing. So I would definitely reach out to people early and often in this journey. I have a LinkedIn user who says, I start my program next spring. I'm so nervous. I even started looking at non-dissertation doctoral programs. So I'm not sure who this is, but definitely don't be scared of the dissertation. It's an opportunity for you to showcase your brilliance and to showcase that you are someone who is looking to contribute to the scholarly conversation. So don't be scared of that process. Like, this is not the thing to be scared of, because I want you all to feel comfortable with doing the work that's required to get your doctorate done. Like, don't feel nervous. There are people probably who are that you far exceed intelligence wise who are finishing this dissertation only because they continue to work. So definitely don't be afraid of that. I definitely say go through the process, especially depending if you want to become a faculty member and go do the other things when you finish. You want to have an independent project to position yourself as an expert. So I definitely think it's part of the journey. But definitely don't be nervous about it. And I would say definitely grab 14 Secrets to a Done Dissertation, because it'll be helpful for you to kind of get an idea of what's ahead of you in the process, so you can develop some of the habits as you start your doctoral program versus waiting until you're trying to wrap things up. But those are great questions. Oh, good, Alexa. I see Alexa mentioned that. She said, I'm on a working on paper right now, but there have been some delays. So it's in the works. Yeah, it just happens like that. These papers take forever. I got an article right now. It's been accepted for publication since October of 2020. I'll repeat that again. It's been accepted for publication since October of 2020. I wrote it with one of my doc students, and hopefully by the time the paper comes out, he'll either be collecting data or almost done with his dissertation by that point. These processes take a long time, but just note it on your CV that, hopefully you have something that you can put under review. So at least on your CV, you can note, Alexa, that it's under review. But these are great questions and comments. And then for those of you all, before we get back into the material, for those of you all who are watching, if you could do me a favor, if you could share this with a doc student, someone else who it can benefit from this, please hit the share button. If you're on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell so that you can know more about when we have future episodes. And then if you're going to catch this on the audio experience, make sure that you give us a 5-star and let us know in the comments. Give us your idea about what you took away from today's episode. And thanks, Carrie. If you want to learn more about the book, you can go to thedonedissertation.com/book for that LinkedIn user. I'm not sure who you are because I can't see your name on my screen, but make sure that you definitely do grab the book. And so with that, right, when we're thinking about how to respond to disappointment, there's another thing we have to consider as we are going through this doctoral journey, that a lot of times, we don't want to do, or we're trying to think about what's the best way to do it. And for many of us, it's about taking a step back and actually looking at what's really happening in this process and actually gains a little bit of perspective on what's happening. Because sometimes we are so into the process, right? We're typing our papers, we are working on a particular section. We're so in the work that we can't take a step back and see the progress that we're having. So a lot of times on our velocity group coaching calls on Monday nights, a lot of times the folks come in and they're having small progress from week to week, right? Because we have weekly calls. But if they would just, sometimes I just look at where they were 6 weeks ago and where they are now, and folks are turning in chapters. I had one client started in January, almost finished with a proposal right now. Like these, folks turn around quickly, but it all starts with these small incremental gains. But when we're thinking about disappointment, sometimes we get so disappointed because we haven't achieved the long-term goal, but we don't give ourselves credit for the short-term goals that we hit in the milestones we hit in between. So like the fact that you wrote that chapter, the fact that, I know Tiffany's on here who I was applying for IRB. So like celebrating that you're going to submit that to IRB, or celebrating that you finished the IRB application. These are milestones that we have to give ourselves credit for, but sometimes we get so discouraged and we get disappointed because we, are so like in the weeds with our work. We're like ingrained in everything, but we can't take a step back. And I've seen this happen with a lot of our clients around the dissertation defense. I remember a couple of clients who were ready to defend. I remember last year, one client who was ready to defend around this time, around late March, and then they submitted all the materials. They actually had a defense date. And then the committee all of a sudden was like, well, we like these papers, but we want you to go back and do all these edits. So it like pushed them back about 5 or 6 weeks, even though they had been done. They still graduated on time and got through the dissertation process, but that was a setback. And so for a lot of students, they would have been disappointed. They would have been heartbroken about it. But the student took it in stride. I was like, look, at this point, I'm done. I'm going to refine and give them whatever they need for me to get out of this program. And for that student, because they were able to just figure out like, hey, when I take a step back and I look, I'm actually done with my dissertation. I'm just now refining and doing all these edits to satisfy the committee, but I'm done with the bulk of the work. And so what they were able to do is do all that work, defend the dissertation, and now they're a postdoc. All these opportunities happen because they were willing to not only, talk about how frustrated they were with the dissertation process, and they had an issue, particularly with one committee member, but they were willing to push through it and, overcome it and succeed because they were willing to like, hey, I'm not even going to let this disappointment get in my way. I'm going to figure out what can I control and then move the process forward. But for a lot of us, we're trying to be so right that, my committee set a defense date, and because they didn't, because they got to push back, now you're in your feelings about it. And sometimes it derails students. So sometimes you start responding, negatively to faculty. Sometimes you get attitudes with them. And sometimes you just make the process so much more difficult for yourself when you didn't need to do it. And I definitely don't want to see that for you as doctoral students as you are finishing your process. Like this is the part where you want to get through quickly. And it gets to a point in the process where it doesn't matter what disappointment you experience, you are going to get to the end. Shout out to one of our clients. He knows who he is. He's been flying through the dissertation process. He started working with us in November, defended in February, collected his data. And I saw a full copy of the dissertation last week already. Like folks, and he experienced a number of setbacks that could have derailed him. But because he had a support system in the Velocity Group coaching program, had a process, understood how to navigate it by the coaching we were giving, he was able to fly through. And even clients now are saying like, man, you flew through. We were talking about this on the coaching call on Monday. Like, man, you've been flying through this thing. And it's like a matter of getting the support and going all in. But knowing that it's okay to experience the disappointment, but it's about how you respond is what will separate those who finish from those who don't. And those are the things I wanted to talk about on today's episode. But before we jump off, or before I take questions, I do got to give a shout out to Dr. Ron Miller. Shout out to Dr. Ron Miller, who successfully defended his dissertation last week. He's one of our clients. He was in our coaching program in May of 2022. So less than a year, he is out of his program. I remember when he first started looking to work with us, he came too early in the process. And I was like, nah, man, it's not a good time. Actually, I want you to come back when you are actually working on your proposal. And now to see where he was then, a year ago, and then now to be done, man, it's amazing. So shout out to you, Dr. Miller, if you're watching this, man. We're super, super proud of you in the work that you've been able to do. Also, the shout out to Dr. Jackson. We'll announce you soon as well, but congratulations on successfully defending your dissertation as well. You defended yours about a week and a half ago. Just super proud of folks who have come in the program, did what they had to do, and gotten out. and are now able to do all the great things they wanted to do with these doctoral degrees. So with that, this episode was all about responding to disappointment in the dissertation process. So if you have a question, let me know. If you're watching this on replay, drop your question in the comments. I'll be happy to respond. And again, this episode is sponsored by the Velocity Group Coaching Program. It is a 4-month coaching experience with the goal to help you, the doctoral student, write and defend your dissertation over the next 4 months. So if you're someone who's looking to finish your dissertation quickly and you want to get through the doctoral journey and do so without having extreme headache and frustration, like many of your colleagues probably do have, and you're probably seeing it, make sure that you reach out to us and learn more about our program at www.velocitydissertation.com. So with that, I want to say thank you all so much for tuning in, but I would be happy to take any questions that you all might have right now. Tiffany says, let's see, it was a great episode. Thank you for sharing your insight and experience. No problem. Like, look, I'm just trying to give y'all the real deal about what this process entails. I definitely will now hold back and let you all know what to do and what not to do. And even sometimes it's not even about what to do. It's about what options you have, because a lot of our clients will always ask us, well, what should I do? And a lot of times, sometimes our response is, it depends. And then it's a matter of laying out what are the perspectives about what you want to do. It's just a matter of where you want to go with your dissertation, where you want to go with your career, and then you kind of make a plan accordingly. So there's a number of different routes, and just know that your journey doesn't have to look like someone else's, and be okay with that. Shout out to her, said, go Dr. Miller. Yeah, shout out to Dr. Miller. Shout out to Dr. Jackson. So Dr. Miller and Dr. Jackson, I think, make our, let's see, I think we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think our 7th and 8th doctor this year so far already in March. So we got folks that are wrapping up, finishing up. So they were, working on a dissertation, this time last year. And so within 1 year, they are done. And it doesn't take a long time, y'all. It just takes work. So if you're looking to work with us, you have to put in some work, but we are willing to help and support you to get to that part of the journey. And Alexa, I'm so glad that today's episode was helpful and the advice was helpful for you. And please do, y'all, make sure that you share this with somebody. Don't keep this information to yourself. Make sure you share it with a classmate, someone who who could benefit, because we all need support. We all need help to get to this doctoral journey, and we don't need to do it alone. So this is definitely a team sport to get through. But with that, are there any questions? I'll stay on for a couple more minutes to answer any questions that folks might have. But yeah, if you can do me a favor, hit the share button. If you're watching on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, share it somewhere so that we, can stay connected. If you got this on YouTube, share the YouTube link with your cohort, share it with your classmates, and then make sure you hit the subscribe button. So, we want to make sure that folks know when we're doing these live videos, as well as other content that we will post on our YouTube page. But any questions? And good to see everybody on Instagram as well. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Let's see. Warner was on. Let's see. Atla, Dr. Janet. Good to see you. Carrie, what's going on? Good to see everybody. Nathan, I will inquire about your service. Thank you. Yeah, for sure, Nathan. Shoot me a message, or I'll definitely will follow up with you. Let me write this down. I'll follow up with you after the episode as well, to catch up with you, see if you have any questions or thoughts about working with us. Any questions that folks might have? Shout out to Ricky. Good to see you, Ricky. Ricky, you're mad dedicated. I gotta give you a shout out, man. Ricky, you on all the writing. We have writing group in our program. Ricky is on all the writing groups, like putting the work in, man. I'm super proud of what you're doing and how you're approaching this process. So keep up the great work, Ricky. Yeah, we want folks who come in the program and want to do the work and like want to put the work in. Like that's what we're all about. We're not folks trying to like figure out for someone to, to write things for them or give them the dissertation. Like, no, we want people to want to come in and do the work, but we just want to process and system in order to do it, with the greatest speed as possible. But any other questions before we wrap up this evening's episode? But we will certainly be back next week. And on the next episode, I'm going to talk more about how I wrote my 221-page dissertation in 7 months. So I'm going to talk about my own journey, about what I had to do in order to go from someone who was just, starting the dissertation to actually writing a 200-plus page dissertation, which I still can't imagine to this day. If you would have told me when I first started my doc program, I would have that much to say, I would have told you you're lying. But, you start to figure things out after a while. And shout out to Ron, Dr. Ron Miller. He just joined on Instagram. But Dr. Miller, we were just talking about you, man. I was just giving you a shout out, saying congratulations on defending your dissertation, man. We're super proud of you. So with that, if there are no more questions, I don't see anything. I'm just double checking. I don't see anything on my end. Ron says, thank you, Dr. Goins. I'm done. Facts, Dr. Miller. You're out of there. And out of there early, too. That's what I like. I like when doctors get out early. Perfect. I appreciate you. So yeah, we love to celebrate our clients too. That's one thing I truly value at Done Dissertation. Renee and I, like, and Dr. Varela, who's a coach, Carrie, who does our marketing. Like, we value and we want to see you all win. That's what the pride of us is, like, not about what we're able to do, but how as clients we're able to see you all flourish and all the things that you all are doing. Like, I mean, I got former client right now is working with the House of Representatives. Like, it's just like amazing to see what folks do when they get their doctorate and the opportunities that are available once you have finished the dissertation process. Shout out to Dr. Nia Fields. Shout out to my Morganite. Dr. Fields went to Morgan State like I did, same doctoral program. Shout out to you. I hope all is well with you and the family. I see the son playing ball. I like watching the videos, so definitely keep those coming. But all right, y'all. I don't see any other questions. I want to say again, appreciate you all for tuning into this episode of From ABD to PhD. Again, I'm Dr. Rowan Goings, host of the show and founder of Done Dissertation, where we demystify the dissertation process so that doctoral students can write and defend a dissertation in 1 year or less. This episode is sponsored by the Done Dissertation Velocity Group Coaching Program. It is a 4-month coaching experience with the goal to help you, the doctoral student, write and defend either your dissertation proposal, or if you're past your proposal defense and have collected your data, actually finish your dissertation over the next 4 months. So if you're someone who wants to learn more, you can visit www.velocitydissertation.com to learn more about our program, hear from our past clients, and to apply to work with us. And until next week's episode, I look forward to seeing you all soon and have a great